And welcome back to the JPG channel. No episode of Universe Mode today. Today is actually going to be a special video, a little tribute and honor to the late great Windham Rotunda, also known as Bray Wyatt. And in the same video, I suppose we can also pay respects to John Huber, formerly known as Brody Lee, or Luke Harper as well, because he's going to be involved in this match that we're showcasing. And this match right here is actually going to be what my favorite match was of Bray Wyatt's career, and that's Elimination Chamber 2014, the Wyatts versus the Shield. One of the greatest six-man tag matches that I've ever seen since I've been watching wrestling all the way back in the early 2000s. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't think of a really better way for me personally to pay tribute to Bray, other than, you know, just getting on here for maybe about a half hour or maybe shorter while this match plays through, and talk about, you know, the what I consider the creative genius that was Windham Rotunda. I mean, you can talk about the Bray Wyatt character, you can talk about reinventing himself as the Fiend, you can talk about the Mr. Rogers gimmick if you want to. It's just like this guy was so good at reinventing himself and so creative, and had a truly just amazing mind, and amazing mind for the business as well in that aspect. But yeah, I mean, it's been a hard week for us wrestling fans. It's definitely been a hard week for me personally, because I literally grew up watching this guy all the way through like elementary school, all the way outside of high school into my adult life. I mean, I've known of this man. I've known of the character for over a decade now. You know, I can still remember the vignettes of when the Wyatt family were, you know, getting ready to debut. Like, I remember being maybe 12, 13 years old, and I'm like, what is this? Like, going home kind of like unnerved in a way. Like, I would be at my brother's house, and I would have to, you know, I'd be walking back home kind of late at night, and just kind of feeling unnerved after watching some of those videos. Like, back when they didn't, but before they had him talking or anything, they just had, like, you know, images of, like, you know, Rowan staring into the camera, or just like these images of, like, you know, just very unnerving things for for like a little, not a little kid, but like a preteen to be watching for sure. But not at the same time that I was unnerved, I was completely invested and interested even back then with all that stuff as well, because I was like, well, this is so different from anything I've ever seen. And, you know, at the time, that's exactly what WWE needed. I mean, they had the Shield already. They've had the Shield already for almost a year, but they had nobody to answer to the Shield, and thus I believe, like, you know, the Wyatt family was definitely put in that position for a very good reason, and that's what culminated to, you know, this match right here, the six-man tag at Elimination Chamber, just barely a year after the Wyatts had debuted. If I remember correctly, and I remember Bray's actual debut, it was against Kane in an Inferno match at the SummerSlam of that previous year. I remember that match pretty vaguely, but I remember, you know, certain parts about it. I remember, and I think that they triple teamed them at times and stuff like that. I try to keep it, you know, kind of authentic. I actually recently watched the match back, still just as great as I remember it being before. I remember Rowan and Rollins started the match, so that's what I decided to do here. But I mean, this is just something to be in the background as I kind of talk about, just remembering, like I said, a truly great, not only wrestler, a truly great entertainer. I've heard nothing but good things from him, behind scenes and everything like that. I've heard he's like, from meet and greets, he would be the easiest person to talk to. He would always be that person to give somebody the time of the day, and no matter what he was doing, he would stop. He would stop and maybe sign an autograph or take a picture, and like, see him in public, and he'd do the same exact thing. And I mean, guys like that in the business, it used to be a lot harder to find than it is now, but there's still like people that, there's still people that say, a lot of wrestlers have like ego trips and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, Bray Wyatt was, probably one of the most selfless men that I've ever, seen. Not even just like behind the camera, but also in front of it. As much as anybody was giving to him, he was giving back. There's stories all around like the world that, every wrestler says, anytime they were in the ring with Bray, he would keep them protected and, make sure that nothing goes wrong. Like I remember Jericho made a post maybe yesterday about it, and he could basically thank Bray Wyatt for always keeping him safe in the ring. So that's the that's the kind of people that leave a lasting impact. And obviously so many people around the wrestling world are just like hurting in unison right now because of the tragic event that happened on Thursday. And it still doesn't even feel real, honestly. But nothing like that ever does feel real. Like I remember when Brody died too, that didn't feel real at all either. It's like you get that news, and like, obviously I can't imagine how people who actually knew him, felt when they seen that news for the first time. But just like being a fan of these people and of these workers and their work and what they've brought to the table all these years, it's just like, man, it really is gut wrenching, like really. And it was just it was like a little bit hard to believe or understand. Like obviously, you have all these like fake news on like Twitter or X or however you call it nowadays, where it's like, oh, like fake death reports, which is never anything good, never anything that you should really be doing. Like there's people's families out there that could be going through emotional trauma because of that. But anyways, to get to my point, I originally thought that's what that was, like that somebody for some reason was making up that rumor because they had just came out with the fact that that he was pulled off the Mania card because of a health condition, and he got COVID and stuff. But like the most recent report before that was that he was doing much better than before. So we were like, okay, so reports are he's supposed to be coming back, maybe around Payback. Some people thought SummerSlam. Some people watched Monday Night Raw Weekly thinking he was gonna like enter a program with Cody or something. But yeah, and that's why that news was so shocking. Because like you just don't imagine that to happen to somebody so so young and that had so much more life to live. Same thing with Brody. Like I think they said he was maybe about 40, 41, somewhere around there. That's still not even middle age yet. I would consider middle age 50, which means you should have another whole half of your life to live on top of that. But I mean, in unfortunate conditions, just sometimes it does not work out like that. But yeah, I mean, I literally couldn't believe the news when I first heard. Like I was sitting inside a Jersey Mike's at the time, waiting for an order because I was doing some Uber Eats on the side, as I like to do as a hobby when I'm not on here. And I just read it. The only thing I read was that I read the Triple H tweet, like I'm sure everybody did, and all I saw was Bray Wyatt, and I didn't even read the full article yet. But next to Bray Wyatt, I saw his real name, Windham Rotunda, and then I was like, wait a minute, because I thought perhaps he'd be making some kind of, for some reason I don't think Triple H would ever really like reveal that somebody's coming back or something, but maybe he had some news regarding like his condition and if he's in better shape now and if he's ready to come back soon. But no, I mean, as soon as I seen that he used his real name outside of the business, I knew it was something very serious. And right after that, I immediately went to Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and I immediately seen flooded down the timeline, not only people posting about it and saying their whatever words they could muster up at that time, but also just like all over the trending part, it was just Bray Wyatt, rest in peace Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, everything. Yeah, it was a hard day after hearing that for the rest of the day. And last night on Friday Night SmackDown, that was it was a hard show to watch too, because like I said, like all this stuff just seems so recent. All of the stuff that they were showing from Bray's career, it hasn't even been 15, maybe it's been about a decade now. Just about, I guess, next year, 2024, would be pretty much a decade. But, I mean, like, it all feels still so fresh and like, it just happened yesterday in a way, even though years and years have gone by and we've seen different, like I said, different iterations of the character. And like I said, just Bray being able to reinvent himself time and time again after sometimes getting like absolutely nothing from creative or just feeling like he's kind of like lost his creative process and having to step away from that, getting released, which on if seeing the news on Thursday was the most shocking thing I've ever seen from Bray Wyatt, which obviously it would be. The second biggest one was seeing that he got released, because I never thought in a million years that they would ever release Bray Wyatt. I mean, this is a guy that you can do so many things with, and like you don't even really need him in the ring to do most of those things. That's the crazy part about it. Like, this guy was so good. Wrestling was kind of like his second job in a way. His first job was to, try and sell you on something. And a lot of people said that he should have, taken up to Hollywood and become an actor because of how good he was, with promos and just talking and just getting you to believe in whatever he's saying, and, just creating a fan base just based on that alone. But what I was saying, like, is, I mean, it's just like a person like that, they definitely haven't came around in WWE in forever, and they won't be there ever again. A person like Bray Wyatt only comes like once in a lifetime, I believe. And he was a special talent for them to have, and obviously a special man as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, if I can recollect some of the better memories and some of my favorite moments of Bray Wyatt, obviously considering I'm doing this reinvention of the match in 2014, this has to be number one for me. I mean, I remember, I remember watching the match live, and I remember just because I recently watched it, but not only that, but I remember a lot of things of that match once I rewatched it. I remember the crowd chanting "This is awesome" before the match even began. I remember the pace of the match, like just perfectly paced kind of tag team match, just exactly what you would want a tag team match to be. You have your moments where the heels are working over the faces. You have your moments where the faces are getting back into it. They got their comeback moments, their hot spots, their hot tags, whatever you may call it. I remember a lot about that match, and that's exactly why I still regard it as not only my favorite moment of Bray Wyatt, one of my favorite moments from either three members of the Shield as well. One of my favorite moments in WWE history, honestly. Like I said, I was so invested and involved in both trios, in both factions. I loved the Shield, I loved the Wyatt family, and I just loved I loved everything that was going on with all six members involved at that time. Like I remember the Daniel Bryan story. That's the year the Yes Movement was so big. So which leads me right to my second favorite moment, which is the cage match. Wyatt and I was gonna call him Danielson. I guess I can. Wyatt and Danielson versus the Usos, I believe. And I remember seeing that one live as well. The roar of the crowd, like once Danielson ripped the jumper off. I remember that pretty well as well. I think he was involved in a series of just pretty interesting rivalries and pretty interesting stories. I believe it was that same year, or maybe the year after, where he did the first Cena match at WrestleMania. I remember bits and pieces of that. I remember being mad that Bray Wyatt lost that match, but I guess they tried to rectify themselves. I think like a month later when they did the steel cage match. I remember that as well. I don't remember seeing that live, but I remember going back and watching it with the kid with the distorted voice, and he it distracts Cena into Sister Abigail, and Wyatt gets his victory back. I remember being in a program with Jericho, as Jericho mentioned, keeping him safe and stuff. I remember that as well. I think that might have ended in a steel cage match as well, which I'm not sure what the relevance to that is, but I guess that's what they wanted to do that at the time. Like I said, I remember him coming in with the feud with Kane. I remember when they did SmackDown Live era, and Bray Wyatt was considered a member of the new SmackDown 6 with what was it, like Corbin, Ambrose, AJ, Cena. I think Dolph was in there as well. Like those are the 6 top men on that brand. And man, I thought Bray was really cool back then as well. I dig the whole dread look he had going, the jean, like the acid wash jean kind of look that he had going for himself. At that point, I feel like he like I said, reinventing the character. Like I don't think he was more of the original cult leader that he was before. I think he kind of reinvented himself into being the more maybe modern version of that same character. So I remember him and Randy doing a program together before they did their second program with the Fiend and stuff. I remember them winning tag team championships. I remember their WrestleMania match, which some people love to hate and some people hate to love, with all the whole man, the image I can't get out of my head from that match is like the projection on the ring, where they would keep doing like the creepy images and stuff. And I think that was even the year that they that Orton walked to the ring, and they had the I think that might have been the first year they had the Floortrons, and it looked like a giant sperm following him all the way down to the ring. I think I'm remembering that correctly. I don't remember a lot about that match, but I remember definitely the images they showed like in the middle of the ring. What else can I say? I mean, after that, I'd say the thing I remember after that was the Fiend vignettes. And I remember feeling the same way that I felt about the original Bray Wyatt vignettes when I was, like in middle school. Fiend, I was probably already out of high school, but I still remember feeling the exact same way. Like, holy crap! Like this is unnerving. This is I thought it was cool, of course. At my age, I'm into horror movies. I'm into creepy stuff like that. So it didn't bother me, but I thought it was just like the best thing that WWE has done in a while. Like, cause that there was a rough period before that where we were kind of like just trying to get by every Monday and every Friday. NXT at that time was at the top of its game, so it was keeping us alive as wrestling fans. But I remember the vignettes of the Fiend. I remember the Mr. Rogers character, all the Firefly Funhouse for like the first few vignettes. I remember that was also. I remember also thinking that was pretty unique. I remember like the whole kind of Jekyll and Hyde sort of situation was just perfect for Bray and what he can do. To just elevate that character. And then you get to SummerSlam of that year. The Fiend finally debuts with all the theatrics and his entrance and the music. Dude, I think I said it last week when I was getting ready to do a Wyatt program in Universe Mo, which unfortunately, guys, out of respect of Bray Wyatt, is not going to continue. This is actually probably going to be the last time you see him on my channel. This is, like I said, this is just a tribute video to him, and of course, Brody as well. But I said that the Fiend, if he didn't have the best debut of all time, as in terms of like not just the match, the theatrics, the entrance, everything, he would definitely have the second one. And the only one that I would probably hold up just a little bit higher because of the scenario and everything going on at the time is probably Kane, because I remember that being the coolest thing ever when I was a kid, is watching like Kane come through, rip the door off the hinges, and beat up his brother and stuff. But no, like I said, if it's not above Kane, it's right underneath him, because I remember thinking that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Not like the music. I mean, come on, this guy's always had great music, but to me that one was probably the best. That one topped it all. And just the whole presentation, man, and the perfect like opponent for him to have. I think they said Balor was like taking time off after that, so they did a squash match to write him off TV. Just a perfect way to reinvent the character, and that's what I keep going back to, is the ability to reinvent your character. And I know a lot of anything Bray did was his idea. Like, I know for sure that he was granted a lot more creative freedom than most can say for themselves. That's for sure. But that's because, like I said, he had a just unique mind and just like an idea for what he wanted to do with these characters and with, with the stories involved with his character. And yeah, like it's like I said, it's gonna be hard to find someone like that again in the next 20, 30 years, because like unique individuals like that are a dime a dozen, and that's exactly what Bray Wyatt was. But yeah, I mean, after the Fiend debuting, of course, I remember the Hell in a Cell match. At the time, watching it live, I didn't think it was as bad as everybody thought it was. Like, I thought it was entertaining. I loved the big sledgehammer, like the comedic, like a comically large sledgehammer, or not even it wasn't even a sledgehammer. I think it was just like just a regular, like hammer that you would see like Joker in the cartoons roll around with. I remember that. I remember the I remember the negative comments and the critiques about that match. I mean, that's probably the best thing I remember about it. But I don't know, like, I thought it was fun. For whatever reason, I thought it was fun. But I mean, the more and more that I would go back and watch that match, I'm like, okay, I kind of see your guys' point, I guess. But then I think it was a month later they tried to once again rectify themselves and put the championship on the Fiend. I'll tell you that the one thing that I did not, did not agree with that match is that they beat the Fiend. Like, no matter what they made Seth do to beat him, he should not have been beating the Fiend. I don't think the Fiend probably should have ever lost, because the once you beat the Fiend, the aura is gone, the mystique's gone, and that quickly happened. Unfortunately, once again, another case of them just not knowing either what to do with him, or booking themselves into a corner, or whatever it may be. But yeah, at the end of the day, but they just can never get the character right. But I think if they let, they did let Bray have creative freedom, but if they let him have maybe just a little bit more, maybe even just to dictate, where the story with his characters would go, I think we'd be talking about a few more great memories. But still, nonetheless, I mean, he still had a really good career. He feuded with some of the top wrestlers that have ever done it: Cena, Orton, Jericho, Taker, Kane. You could put in there if you want. He was a multiple-time world champion. I remember another Elimination Chamber moment, and another one of my favorite moments, which I, kind of lost my train of thought earlier about that. But no, that Elimination Chamber where Bray Wyatt won and caught Styles with the Sister Abigail after he was coming from the phenomenal forearm. That was hot. that was a great moment. I remember marking out for that for sure. And I remember being so happy that Bray was champ. I was like, that's cool, man. Like, that's well deserved. It's well deserved, and it was just right at the time. I think that's what I was talking about, like with the Randy Orton feud, because I think they feuded for the belt that year. After Orton pretended to be in the Wyatt family, and they had that whole story of Harper not trusting Orton, which obviously proven in WWE you should never do. I remember me, along with a lot of other people, thought that it should have been a triple threat that year with Harper involved. But obviously, WWE didn't see it that way. But still a pretty good story nonetheless. But no, that Chamber moment where Wyatt wins the belt for the first time, great moment. That is a great moment. That Chamber I remember being pretty good too, but that moment of all things topped it off for sure. That moment topped it off for sure. Oh, and then I was talking about his accolades and stuff. Yeah, multiple time world champion. I remember his Universal title run, like I said, with when he beat Seth a month after the horrendous Hell in a Cell match. And then he also won it from Braun, if not the year after, then maybe 2 years after. I think, I'm not entirely sure on that. But I remember the SummerSlam match as well. That was the pandemic era. That was also the year they had Goldberg beat him. God, man. Like I said, once you have beaten the Fiend, you kind of loses the whole aura about him. And after that, after a while, they felt like the Fiend was just getting, used and thrown around. Like yesterday's trash, which again another unfortunate booking decision of WWE, which I mean there's a lot that I guess you can go back to when it comes to that. But no, I mean at its height, the Fiend, like I said, was one of the coolest things that WWE has ever done, really ever. Like I can't remember being that invested in a character probably ever, because I just thought the idea was so cool. I thought the presentation was top notch. Like you couldn't have done it any better. The music, the entrance, the mannerisms, the I would say facial expressions, but he was under a mask. But even being under the mask, he still was really great at just like expressing himself, even when you couldn't see his face. And that's another thing that Bray was really good at. I remember the Alexa stuff. I wasn't too big of a fan of the Alexa stuff. It was cool. It was all right. That's when they did the Orton and Wyatt match again at that coming WrestleMania. That's also when Orton lit him on fire, which that was cool. That was something I definitely didn't expect at the time. So yeah, the second rivalry with Orton was pretty cool. The Burnt Fiend looked cool too, actually. I like the OG Fiend look, but the Burnt Fiend was pretty dope too. Yeah, it didn't look bad at all, that's for sure. But it's kind of weird that they went back from that to like regular Fiend. What, like a week later or something like that? Like like he healed from his burn scars that quick or something. But I know Tom Savini, he did all the masks and stuff, which looked absolutely, absolutely like spot on, pitch perfect, like whatever you want to say. Like it got your point across as to what you were trying to get across. Whether it be like different features of the mask or the texture, or how far to make the smile across his face and stuff like that. Just enough level of creepy for him to still pass as a professional wrestler, but also someone that you do not want to be wrestling in that ring with. But yeah, I mean, those are just some of my favorite moments of Wyatt. Like I said, a character I grew up on. All the way from early middle school days into well after high school. A man I've always found as an interesting, unique mind, and somebody that could have taken the world by storm. He had his moments, his ups and downs in the wrestling business, but at the end of the day, like I said, it's going to be hard pressed to find another guy like Windham Rotunda in the next 50 years. And everybody paying their respects now, and all the guys and girls in the business sharing their own personal like thoughts and memories about Bray Wyatt. That tells me everything I need to know about him as a person, which I already knew from stories that I'd already came out previously, way before this tragic event even happened. Like, everybody has always speak so highly of this man, and yeah, I mean, the wrestling community is going to forever miss Windham Rotunda. Bray Wyatt, The Fiend. It's going to be a hard one to get past, that's for sure. But you know, obviously the only positive point that anybody's been making out of this entire thing, if any, is that he's finally reunited with his best friend up there. And I guess at the end of the day, that's all you could really ask for. You know, when it comes time to go. But, you know, both men will be missed. Both men were incredible athletes, incredible entertainers, incredible people. Like, you probably couldn't ask for a better band of brothers, really, with those three guys. And I'll even include Braun in there, because you could see the level of, like, compassion and love and just brotherhood in those men. Seeing Eric and Braun on Friday again, you know, tearing up after they shined like the rocking chair, like the spotlight on the rocking chair, kind of like symbolizing, you know that Bray was with us. That was a really tough and touching moment too. But yeah, I mean, I didn't want to make the video too long, but I just wanted to put something out, like I'm sure a lot of us YouTubers are going to be doing in the next few days, just to honor the name of Bray Wyatt, Windham Rotunda, and just you know, trying to put some of my favorite moments out there, and maybe others can share more in the comments, who knows. But yeah, this is just a little video I wanted to put together. Yeah, we will miss you, Bray, that's for sure. Thank you.